problem. No problem at all. And hang up the phone. And then the next time they would see young Sam would say, so Sam, we're going to do this play. And we thought maybe you'd like to audition. And so, I love stories like that. I love the people who recognize somebody's talent and will say, sure, we'll get him playing rugby, but we're also going to make sure he auditions for this play, because your kid is really, really talented in this way and should be encouraged. And I thought, I'll bet that there's a story like that for everybody. And maybe it's the teacher who discouraged you and you had to figure out how to get past that, and that you really were drawn to do this thing and you really should do it anyway. Maybe it's something else, but I thought, it would be really, really fun to interview people and hear stories like that. And if I could use it as an excuse to travel too, because originally I wanted travel to be a part of it, which would still be great. I just don't have the money to make that happen yet. That would be a bonus. But really, I want to hear these stories. I want to hear stories about people and how they came to do the things that they do and how they overcame odds or the effects that encouragement had on them. And then that kind of grew into, I also want to interview people that you wouldn't expect to hear from. So, I have an interview up with Robert Smith, who is a mathematician who, among other things, is known for modeling zombie outbreaks. And I put that one back up as a replay a week or two ago because I kept thinking about it with all of this coronavirus stuff, because it's literally the kind of thing that he works on the mathematical models for these things. And, I really wanted to talk to somebody who was a mathematician because I am definitely not a mathematician. And I think the first question I asked him is, please explain to me how math is creative, because I know it must be, but I don't understand how. So please tell me. But I've also talked to people who, are doing things on the side and work as a software engineer or work as a barber, but, have 3 bands that they play in and have started playing on their own. Because I think it's really important to highlight that everybody can do this. You don't have to be a Sam Neill or a Robert De Niro or, Celine Dion to be able to do your creative thing. We can all do our stuff, and it may be on a smaller scale. Maybe that's all you can manage right now because of whatever your constraints are, but you can still do it. And so I really wanted to be a way to encourage people and also hear the variety of stories that go with people's backgrounds, because everybody's journey is different. You could talk to 50 different actors and hear 50 completely different stories. So we don't usually hear the stories. We hear the success, but we don't hear the stories behind them. And I think that they're just as important as the rest of it, if not more.
Yeah, absolutely. So who was the first person you interviewed? Do you remember?
The first person I interviewed was Robert Shearman, who is a writer. He's won a whole pile of awards that I did not fully appreciate until I went to do his bio. I met him at a Doctor Who convention 2 years ago, and we just started talking and hit it off. And it was when this idea was still pretty fresh in my head. And I thought, you'd be an interesting guest for the podcast that I haven't even got a name for yet. And I don't really know if I'm going to do it and what I'm going to do with it. So I thought, what's the harm? I'll ask him. If he says no, he says no. Nothing ventured, nothing gained, right? And he didn't say no. And so before the weekend was out, we ended up recording an impromptu interview on my iPad in a hotel room, because that's what I had with me. And it was great fun. It was really, really interesting to talk to him and hear some behind the scenes Who stuff. And I think really that gave me the energy to keep the idea alive. I think if I hadn't done that, it probably would have faded into, I don't know how I'm going to make that work, so whatever. But having had that one interview in the can, so to speak, was like, oh, it's a thing. I did this interview. I probably should do something with it now. And gave me the idea and the momentum to keep going and finding other people to talk to.
How'd you come up with the name?
So I stole the name. There was a video a couple of years ago of Elizabeth Gilbert, and it was right around the time that her novel, The Signature of All Things, came out. And she was talking about how people talk about how you should follow your passion, and that she thought this was nonsense. Because passion can come and go. It can burn out. It may or may not lead you anywhere. But when she went to start this book, she wanted to do something different, and she didn't know what it was. And a friend of hers said to her, follow your curiosity. What are you curious about? And so she went and she started investigating botany and eventually came up with the idea for this book out of it. And so that was her thing. She was like, forget your passion, follow your curiosity. And in fairness, I think there's a fair bit of overlap between the two. If you're passionate about something, you're going to be more curious about it. If you're curious about something, there's some energy behind that. But yeah, it took me a little while to settle on an actual name. But then when I remembered that, I was like, that's a great name for a podcast and a coaching business, because that's really what creativity is about. It's about being curious and seeing where that curiosity takes you. So I stole it from Elizabeth Gilbert, who took it from a friend of hers, so I don't feel too bad about it. But that's where it came from. And it also has that travel connotation too. I think the traveling is a great way to stoke your curiosity. You get to be around things you're not around all the time. And I think that's just good for you.
How has your own podcast helped you as a creative?
I think that, first of all, interacting with other creative people will automatically bring your own creativity. There's a level of engagement that doesn't happen when you're talking about, the latest report that you have to file for the month at work. When you get excited, somebody else gets excited, you get excited, and vice versa. So there's all of that energy that goes in there. But also, I think, hearing different people talk about what their experience has been like, it opens up possibilities that you wouldn't ordinarily think of, because everybody has learned something along the way that other people can learn from. Whether it's, if you're a plotter, maybe you want to take a break from that and try writing by the seat of your pants at some point and see what happens. It may not work for you, because odds are good if you're a plotter for a reason, and vice versa. I mean, I cannot imagine outlining something, though there are moments when it's like, okay, I need to figure out how this goes, so maybe I'm going to try it here. You hear what works for somebody else, and it gives you ideas that you might want to try yourself, or it may spark other ideas for you. So hearing all of these things, I mean, first of all, it reminds me that even though I've always believed in my gut that we are all creative and we all have the capacity to find ways to do our own creative stuff, it's like a constant reminder that that's true. So I can't forget. And I think forgetting that is one of the big things that gets in our way, just like forgetting how much you love to act or sing or dance or write or, design whatever it is you do. But it also sparks all of those ideas. It's like, ooh, I never thought of that before. How cool is this that, like you drew out your screenplay and put voices with it. I wouldn't have thought to do that. So it opens up so much stuff that comes at you from all of these different perspectives. It reminds you that we're all different, but we're really all the same, because we all have the same creative energy inside us, and it's just different ways of letting it out. And there's something to appreciate and something to learn from all of that.
Absolutely. Actually, you were almost answering one of my final questions. Do you think...
I love the self-interviewing guest.
Yes, she just answers her own question. But you maybe can add more to that. And I know I probably already know what your answer is, but do you think we all have an artist inside of us?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I think Picasso says that every child is an artist. The problem is remaining one when you grow up. And I think that's really what it is. You learn the rules. You learn that if you're going to draw the ladder that I can see right now while I'm talking to you, that it should look like a ladder. It should be recognizable. It should be as close to reality as possible. Well, who said? And I've seen that. My eldest nephew is 7, and he already can be very perfectionistic about stuff like that, and it breaks my heart, because I'm like, oh, no, let that go, honey, let it go. But that's what gets in our way. We think that the thing we do has to meet a certain standard, or whatever, or we're not really an artist, or we're not really creative, and it's just not true. It's there. I promise you, there is something that you have done in the last 24 hours that was creative that you didn't register that way, where you came up with a solution to something, or you jerry-rigged a thing or designed something, and you thought nothing of it, but there was a whole pile of creativity in there. We're all artists. It's just that we forget.
Very true. Any advice for future writers or creativity coaches?
Just do your thing and don't get hung up on the details of what it looks like or how good it is or any of the other things that, the critical parts of your brain are telling you to get hung up on, because they're probably not important. It doesn't matter that your drawing doesn't look like Picasso's drawing. Some of Picasso's drawings don't look like Picasso's drawings, It doesn't matter that you have a friend who does this better than you do. We tend to think in terms of better and worse, and really it's just different. Your friend's thing isn't necessarily better than yours. It's just different. Yours isn't worse. It's just different, and different is okay. It's more important to actually be out there doing the thing than worrying about how good it is. If you compare yourself to other people, you are always going to decide that you lose, especially because, there's that quote about not comparing your chapter 1 to somebody else's chapter 20. And it's true, chapter 20 is in a totally different place. You just aren't there yet. That doesn't mean you shouldn't be writing your book. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't be, putting one foot behind the other and doing your thing. And there's a great Neil Gaiman quote that says, this is how you do it. You sit down at the keyboard and you put one word after another until it's done. It's that easy and that hard. And that's really what it boils down to. But we turn it into this big thing, and we ask the destructive what if questions. What if this is terrible? What if, my boyfriend thinks it's awful? What if my teacher tells me that I have no talent? What if everybody laughs at me? So what? The people who are laughing at you probably aren't writing the thing or painting it or building it. So what right do they have to talk about that? Brené Brown quotes Teddy Roosevelt about the man in the arena all the time, and quite rightly. If you are not actually in the arena, shut up. You have no right to talk about how somebody else who's in there doing the stuff is doing it, and your opinion really doesn't have much value. Get into the arena and then see how it looks from there. But yeah, don't listen to everybody else. Listen to that voice inside you that says, I need to be doing this, and this makes me feel good, and this is a worthy use of my time, because part of me will die if I don't do it. And it doesn't matter if it's terrible or if it's good. It just matters that I've done it.
It's a shame we're so hung up on listening to the negativity. It seems much more powerful than the positivity. We need to do some rewiring upstairs.
Yeah. I mean, there's a line that Jill Badonsky uses all the time, because we talk about comebacks. And in moments like that, it's like, so what? I'm doing it anyway.
I like it.
Yeah.
Where can people connect with you online?
They can find me at fycuriosity.com. And the podcast is wherever you find your podcasts. It's just Follow Your Curiosity. It's the only one that has that name, as far as I'm aware. And I'm also on Instagram at fycuriosity, and on Twitter, sort of, at fycuriositypod. And I'm around doing emails, and I'm available. And I'm also doing a book group starting on the 19th of April for Martha Beck's book Steering by Starlight, which is not technically a creativity book, except that I'm pretty sure it is. I haven't ever got past chapter 1, which is part of why I decided to do this, because I want to do it in a group so that we have a structure and take our time and work through all of the exercises and get everybody's feedback and thoughts and whatever. It's super cheap because I'm not teaching it. It's $25 for probably 11, 12 weeks. We're going to co-create that together, so we'll see how long we decide to go. But it's really about listening to that voice that's telling you, I should be painting right now. Or why haven't I auditioned for a play? I'm going to go find a play. I'm going to, build something in my backyard this weekend because I haven't built anything for a while. I'm pretty sure it's not just about that. I think it's a wider scope, but I'm quite sure that it will have an impact on the creativity of everybody who reads it, whether they do it in this group or not. I'm limiting it to 15 people. So if you're interested, check it out pretty quickly. It's up on the website. And there are links from Instagram and whatever too. So it should be pretty easy to find. I would love to have a couple more people come along.
Join the journey, everybody. You also have, not like I'm backtracking, but you do have some of your coaching calls on your podcast.
I do. I have 3 of them on the podcast. It was interesting. It was easier to find guests to just do straight interviews with than it was to find volunteers for